You're welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, COVID-19 figures are on the rise in Anglophone Cameroon. The northwest region has moved speedily from 1 to 5 confirmed cases of the COVID-19, while the southwest region has already recorded at least 13 cases, and nationwide at least 56 persons have been killed by the COVID-19. Stay with us. The Republic of Cameroon is counting 220 COVID as of 26th of April 2020, 103 new cases of COVID-19, with 83 of the cases recorded in the city of Douala and 20 in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé, according to Cameroon's Ministry of Public Health. Dr. Manauda Malachi, the Minister of Public Health, in his last statements indicated that 779 cases of the COVID-19 are active, 12 on oxygen, and 118 hospitalized across the country. And the minister further says 56 persons have been killed by the COVID-19 in Cameroon, and the COVID-19 figures are on a sharp rise in Anglophone Cameroon, hit by socio-political and security crisis for close to 4 years today. The northwest region has speedily moved from 1 to 5 COVID-19 cases over the weekend, and the southwest region has already recorded at least 13 COVID-19 cases. And our report in the northwest region was in one of the localities, Mbengui, in the center, Mbengui, where she took the state of affairs in that part of the country as far as the fight against COVID-19 is concerned. Her report.
I only know, say, it's fine for wash your hands.
People in the northwest region are aware of hand washing with soap and running water as a measure to limit the spread of the coronavirus.
Anything we touch, you go wash your hands.
In Awing, one of the villages that make up Santa subdivision, hand washing before accessing the palace and other areas is a must. With less adaptive health infrastructures in many villages in the northwest region, little respect of all measures put in place by governments and the World Health Organization, an outbreak of the coronavirus in these villages could be catastrophic.
Health is very important. If you are not in good health, you cannot do anything. So that's why I've taken it very, very, very important. And that we are afraid of this pandemic. COVID-19.
For these reasons and more, individuals and associations like the Ndongawing Cultural and Development Association is here at the Awing Palace to launch the COVID-19 response mechanism for the Awing community. To this regard, task forces have been created to monitor transport and funerals, crowd pulling activities in the village.
When a situation like this is facing the nation, and Awing is not immune from being infected, so we need to do everything to protect the village. Our theory is zero tolerance to anything that will put the village at risk. That is why measures have been taken. You have to make sure that we do everything in line with WHO and national policies to prevent the spread.
Strategies have been mapped out by the village head, Fonfozo II, to ensure strict respect of these measures.
Yeah, we have to use the traditional whip so that everybody should respect the regulations put in place by the Traditional Council and the Ndongawing Cultural and Development Association.
The Village Development Association also mounted billboards at the entrance into the village to further drive home the message on the need for prevention. Also, the community's health facilities have been provided 10 thermoflashes and face masks in thousands.
ETV's Mbu Stella reporting from Awing in the Center Subdivision Northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, and political and civil society leaders have continued calling for special measures to be implemented in Anglophone Cameroon with regards to the unstable socio-political and security situation. Special measures including a ceasefire should be implemented in those regions to prevent a catastrophic situation that could erupt from the rising COVID-19 figures in those parts of the country. And from the northwest, we are taking you to the Senegal Maritime Division in the littoral region, where administrative authorities are also enhancing the fight against COVID-19 in that part of the country. Immaculate Folk with us in details.
Administrative authorities in the Senegal Maritime Division, littoral region of Cameroon, stepping up efforts in the fight against COVID-19. Though no COVID-19 case has been reported in the area, barring the way of an eventual case is what these local administrators are fighting for. The coronavirus is real, reason why we are carrying out this sensitization campaign. We want them to take this pandemic serious. While in the field, they are cautioning the population on the importance of respecting government anti-COVID-19 measures so as to prevent any further contamination. Streets and markets are being disinfected with demonstrations on how to wash hands carried out.
This is the first time we are having this concern here. Un dispositif sanctionnateur pour celles des populations qui seraient récalcitrantes.
Those found guilty of violating COVID-19 measures will be punished according to the law.
From the Senegal Maritime Division to the Nyong and Kelly Division, where we're going to be taking a look at the negative impact of COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic on business in that part of the country. And we have details in this report compiled by Smart Njikangebre.
Bike riders in Ezeka in the Young and Kele division of the Center region still wave off government orders to put on protective face mask, even though it's now an obligation for all. It is in this light that the senior divisional officer for Young and Kele division, Peter Tiende, descended to the ground to sensitize these bike riders. We have over 1,200 bike riders in the town, but just a handful of you are here. It shows that you are not taking this situation very seriously, but Corona is real. Sure, it's not yet in Ezeka, but it kills. I decided to start with you because you are exposed and a risk factor to the population.
Et quand vous êtes exposé, vous êtes un facteur de risque pour la population de la ville de Ezeka et aux environs.
Some bike riders in Ezeka say they feel uncomfortable with the protective face mask, while others say they lack the finance to purchase it. A good number of the bike riders have decided to protect themselves as well as their passengers, even though the protective face mask doesn't last long on their faces, which the senior divisional officer of Young and Kele division, Peter Tiende, frowns at.
C'est pour couvrir les voies respiratoires.
It's not to protect the neck, as I see most of you doing. The protective face mask is to protect your face and not to keep in your pocket, as I see most of you doing. A greater part of the population is already putting on the protective face mask in Ezeka, with some adding an additional decoration on it to attract others and at the same time sensitizing them to put on the protective face mask.
And as I said earlier, at least 56 persons have been killed by the coronavirus in the Republic of Cameroon. One of the persons recently killed by the coronavirus is Alfred Fogwe-Mbeng. He was the Director General of the National Shipyard and Industrial Engineering Company and Noni Cameroon People's Democratic Movement CPDM Section President in the Northwest region of the country. He died over the weekend of COVID-19. We shall be paying tribute to Alfred Fogwe-Mbeng in the second part of this newscast. Now we go into the far north region of the country, where authorities have launched a crackdown against clandestine health facilities. Several such health amenities have been shut down by administrative authorities in the far north regional capital Marwa. Details from Ian Strong-Sander.
Less than a week after the closure of 10 clandestine health establishments in Marwa 1 subdivision of the Diamari division, far north region of Cameroon, similar structures have been closed down in Marwa 3 subdivision. Closed down by administrative and health officials of the Diamari division and the far north region, the health structures either operate illegally or lack authorization to perform certain functions. There are many health centers operating here without authorization from the ministry. Moreover, these health units do not forward necessary information to us as they should do. These include the number of deaths and births recorded in their health units. Under what has been baptized as Operation Clean the Health Sector, the team led by the First Assistant Senior Divisional Officer for the Diamari Division, the final regional president of the Cameroon Medical Council, forces of law and order, moved into the suburbs of Marwa Free Council, where shocking discoveries were made. It is terrible and horrible. We discovered health units in very dirty states. Several of them are not in conformity, very dirty that paradoxically favors infections. The administrative officials say they chose to shut down the health establishment as a way to do justice to the local population. We saw health centers with nothing short of slaughterhouses. You see people involved in surgery, whereas they are not specialists. Moreover, surgery is not done in just any kind of health unit. We opted to close them down in order to save the local population. Promising hard times for clandestine health units across the division, the team called on owners of health units which have not been permanently closed to rectify their documents within the shortest time possible.
Out of Cameroon, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom says his country is making significant progress in the fight against COVID-19. He spoke to the press shortly after officially resuming work following his infection with the COVID-19. He is a survivor of the COVID-19. Take a listen.
Good morning. I'm sorry I've been away from my desk for much longer than I would have liked, and I want to thank everybody who has stepped up, in particular the First Secretary of State, Dominic Raab, who's done a terrific job. But once again, I want to thank you, the people of this country, for the sheer grit and guts you've shown and are continuing to show. Every day, I know that this virus brings new sadness and mourning to households across the land. And it is still true that this is the biggest single challenge this country has faced since the war. And I in no way minimize the continuing problems we face. And yet it is also true that we are making progress with fewer hospital admissions, fewer COVID patients in ICU, and real signs now that we are passing through the peak. And thanks to your forbearance, your good sense, your altruism, your spirit of community, thanks to our collective national resolve, we are on the brink of achieving that first clear mission to prevent our National Health Service from being overwhelmed in a way that tragically we have seen elsewhere. And that is how and why we are now beginning to turn the tide. If this virus were a physical assailant, an unexpected and invisible mugger, which I can tell you from personal experience it is, then this is the moment when we have begun together to wrestle it to the floor. And so it follows that this is the moment of opportunity, this is the moment when we can press home our advantage, it is also the moment of maximum risk. Because I know there will be many people looking now at our apparent success.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson speaking there after recovering from COVID-19 infection. Now we are bringing to you these disturbing and heartbreaking images of a mother of 4 who has been rendered homeless in Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé. She has been forced out of her home by some authorities in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. In 2003, she was delivered of 4 babies, and because the family was unable to take care of the babies, they sent a distress calls to the presidency of the Republic, and the First Lady Chantal Biya came to their aid and enabled them to have an apartment in the low-cost houses in the Cité Verte in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. And since then, they have been living there. The widow and her 4 children have been living there. And in 2014, the Chantal Biya Foundation paid 7 million francs CFA of rent and stopped taking care of the rent. And there was an unpaid rent of over 700,000 francs CFA, which she was asked to pay, and being unable to pay, she has been struggling to maintain herself there to no avail, and now she's been forcefully kicked out of that house with an unpaid amount of 5,700,000 francs CFA being requested from her. Now she is homeless in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. She is sending distress call once more to men and women of goodwill, the presidency of the Republic, the First Lady Chantal Biya, the President of the Republic Paul Biya, to come to her rescue. Now we're talking about the consequences of the Anglophone crisis on developmental efforts in the northwest region of the country. Several developmental projects in the Ndongamantum division have been either abandoned or poorly executed as a result of the unstable socio-political and security situation reigning in Anglophone Cameroon for close to 4 years today. For me, I'm Strong Sander.
Meeting at the Kamer Community Hall on Friday, April 23, 2020. The Ndongamantum Divisional Follow-up Committee for the Execution of Public Investment Project noted that several public projects awarded to the division since 2017 have not been executed for several reasons.
At around 2018, His Excellency the Minister of Economy, Planning and Regional Development awarded projects in Ndongamantum to the tune of about 6 billion francs. Principal contractors among the 6 billion are Bofas Enterprise, Jerry Sal, Zonta Solution. These 3 companies have, Bofas has about 3 billion worth of jobs to be done here in Ndongamantum, which he started, and because of the situation which you know, all these jobs were suspended. So I'm praying, Jerry Sal has come back, he started his job, Zonta Solution is back on the field. I am praying, calling on the management of Bofas that Ndongamantum is calm, the roads are open, so Bofas should come back to the field and complete his jobs. That way we are going to make Ndongamantum great again. Apart from the Ministry of Economic Planning and Regional Development, which gave about 6 billion, the Ministry of Urban Development has jobs in Dongamantu, which is close to about 1 billion francs. Then talk about the other sectors. So we have a lot of jobs in Dongamantu. So we are calling on all the contractors whose jobs were suspended to come back to Camer, to Dongamantu, and do their job. The environment is safe, the SO is here, the Tamajor, the security is good, so you can work in all the subdivisions in Dongamantu.
Accompanied by the Senior Divisional Officer for the Dongamantu Division, Dr. Do Simon Quenti, the Mayor of Camer, mini-part officials and other members of the follow-up committee, the team made a round of some of these projects within the Camer Urban Center. Noting that most of the enterprises are still nowhere to be found, even with relative calm reigning in the area, the Senior Divisional Officer for the Dongamantu Division saluted the bravery, determination and steadfast of Jerry Sal, the only enterprise braving the storm to execute its project in Camer.
To appreciate the work which is being done in this urban center by Jerry Sal Enterprise. You will recall that the populations of this vast and important division had as one of their priorities to the head of government, the Prime Minister, the road situation both in towns and in the rural milieu. But the state decided to tackle some of the major roads of our city. And this company, Jerry Sal, won. And the insecurity we experienced in our neighborhoods did not permit the enterprise to ship into the division this material, but he has done everything within his possibility to bring, and that is why the work has started and it is going so fluidly.
To the management of Jerry Sal Camer, love for community development is their push factor, as all has not been on the bed of roses.
The difficulty we are facing is how to bring the material to our division, because we usually bring the material from Banso, but now we are bringing it from Bafusam. And now we have difficulties also in paying our bills, because we are just using our money. We have already made 2 gums for the government to pay, so we are waiting for them to pay us so that we can continue our job. But still we are working, waiting for them to pay us our content.
With BOFAS and Zontal solutions yet to be seen back to the field, Jerry Sal is currently executing the tarring of the CNPS, Ngwayo Quarters, Nkambe Municipal Stadium, Finance Building and the Nkambe Divisional Office Stretch. The 2020 Public Investment Project for Dongamantu includes, among others, 22 projects from Camer, 4 for Ndu, and 14 for Aku Subdivision.
Talking Point is up next. Our first guest today is joining us from Cameroon's political capital, Yaoundé. Awoum Mispa is the president of the women's wing of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM political party, and she's also the Northwest regional head of that political party. You're welcome. Awoum Mispa joining us from the nation's political capital, and with her we're going to be talking about the evolution of COVID-19, notably in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, where there have been fears that there could be an outbreak, an explosion as far as COVID-19 is concerned in those parts of the country if special measures are not implemented. Awoum Mispa, good evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babila.
All right, you're welcome.
Awasum is the right pronunciation of that name.
All right.
Not out. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we begin in the northwest region of the...
a privilege for me to be on Equinoxe this afternoon.
Go ahead, please.
And are you getting me? Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead. 5 on 5.
All right, thank you. So I would like to really extend my condolence to the family of Mr. Avril, and also the family of the Noni CPDM section president, whom we just lost recently because of the COVID-19. Also greetings to my CRM family and to all the powerful Cameroonian women and all the young female politicians in Cameroon.
Right. Awasum Mispa, Women's Wing President of the CRM political party. The COVID-19 figures are on the rise in Anglophone Cameroon, the northwest region, speedily moving up from 1 to 5 cases over the weekend, and the southwest region already at least 13 cases. And there have been calls for special measures to be implemented in those two regions, but this is not yet happening. What's your take on this?
Mr. Jonathan, when we say special measures to be taken on that effect, it's so funny because we see that our government is not really taking this COVID-19 pandemic as a serious business. Because if they do, we would not have the number which we are having today. This pandemic started in Cameroon without any case recorded in the northwest and the southwest. But today, as the news records, we are having up to 5 cases in the northwest and 13 in the southwest region. This is just to tell us that no matter the measures that are being put in place, it is not effective. It is not working towards the handling of that virus. And it's telling the government, if actually they have the ears to hear that, they have to do something much more better than what they are doing. Because the president-elect, Maurice Kamto, outrightly, Mr. Jonathan, stated some measures on which this thing is handled. But the government is giving a deaf ears to it, the president-elect called for a kind of a lockdown. If this government really serious,
I was some mispa. I will. It would be good for us to talk about, because in Cameroon as of now we have the president of the republic, Paul Biya, and the president-elect. I don't know, maybe he's the president-elect of the CRM political party. But if you want to talk about Professor Maurice Kamto, you may just talk about him as the president of the CRM political party. So now we are talking. You are saying that government is not serious about the management of COVID-19. Or what government has been doing, the battery of over 13 measures first, and then later on move up to 20, and more measures that have been taken so far. And the administrative authorities who are seen everywhere on the ground, the Minister of Public Health on the ground working. Why do you think that government is not serious?
Every action that is positive brings in a positive result. If we still have negative result, it's a clear answer that the government is still being serious. And we call the President Kamto the president-elect because Mr. Biya is unfounded, Mr. Jonathan. You yourself, you can bear with me that for over a month plus, we've been looking after Mr. Biya to address us, to console us like that father, to tell us, to speak. When the father speaks to his children, it is more understood and more accepted by the children, But everybody is just answering from left and right. Cameroonians have been left on their own. Even the members of government, you see, they are just trying their own little best to show that they are still in power, but of which nothing is being done. That is why I say each year that the government is still doing nothing. No matter the 13 and up to 20 measures that have been taken, it's just a copy and paste method, of which the other countries where these methods were copied, they actually studied this method and put all the supportive methods to it to make sure that it is being realized and to make sure that they achieve the required number with which they want to follow on the train or the pyramid as to recovery cases or to reduce growth of the COVID-19.
All right. What do you think about the implementation of special measures in the northwest and southwest regions of the country? There have been calls for a ceasefire to be imposed there so that the COVID-19 can be stopped from spreading further into the hinterlands.
Mr. Jonathan, special measures is not new to us. Ceasing fire is not a special measure. This is what we've been asking for since from this government. It's just for them to execute it. We have been making propagandas. President Kanto has been making serious proposals over the years since the start of this crisis for the government to cease fire. But the Minister of Territorial Administration and other ministers, they interpret it in their own way. President Kanto has not said the government should carry their arms. No. In times like this, they have to cease fire. When they cease fire, and we also call on the separatist fighters to put down their weapons, and allow the normal police and gendarmes that normally governs.
Awasum Mispa, President of the
conducive atmosphere. Let's say, for example, Mr. Jonathan, if a separatist fighter, it's on both sides. If a separatist fighter is being attacked now by the COVID-19, how will a medical doctor rush to him? That's a problem. That's why we tell even the separatist fighters, drop your weapons. It is time for us now. COVID-19 knows nobody. It's a friend to nobody. It attacks. It's not like the war that was declared on the northwest and southwest by Mr. Biya that you will see weapons coming. COVID, you don't see it coming. It's a kind of a ghost man. You only see it after it has gotten grab of you and start manifesting.
All right,
so
the president of
the word special status or special measures is not special. It's not so special. It is what is supposed to be done.
All right, the president of the CRM political party, Professor Maurice Kamto, and the other officials of the party put in place an initiative to raise funds for the fight against COVID-19, Cameroon Survival Initiative. And the Minister of Territorial Administration said that was illegal because your party didn't obtain authorization from his ministry as stated by the laws of the land. What has happened to this initiative?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Babila. When we say laws are made by man and can be regulated or can be changed in time of need or crisis by this same man. These laws are being put in place to govern man. And if a man finds himself in time of crisis, danger, like we do presently, you and I and our other citizens on the street, and the cases that have been recorded death, Mr. Babila, you can go extra mile. There are laws that even bind us to do so. Cameroon should not forget that we even have the African Charter on the human and people's rights concerning crisis, danger times like this, where you even have the Latinism that says the necessita obitum law, the necessity of law. You know, during the time of necessity, you make laws that can suit the present context. And we should not forget to understand that whenever there is a crisis, you don't make decrees or orders or laws. You look for measures to suit the present context we are talking about, Mr. Babila. And the Cameroon government should also remember that these same laws they are talking about, it has its exceptions. We also have this section 283 of our penal code, which is failure to assist. All of us, Mr. Babila, we have that liability to assist our fellow Cameroonians. And that's just what Mr. President-elect Professor Maurice Kamto did. He's a profound Cameroonian citizen who took up this legal, moral, and legitimate Republican action to call for donations.
Yes, but I was so missed by the question is, why did your party choose to go the illegal way? Why didn't you go to the Ministry of Territorial Administration to seek for authorization to go on with this activity?
Mr. Babila, I told you there is no illegality about the method in which we used in calling for Cameroonians to help themselves. There is no illegality about it. I've quoted you the section of the Penal Code that tells us about failure to assist. It is our code. Go to its section 283 of the Cameroon Penal Code. It's there. We also have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights that gives us the permission to go ahead in such an engagement. We studied this fact clearly and wisely before calling on the Cameroonians. Mr. Babila, I want you to really answer me this question. Tell me, if your house is ablaze, is on fire, and you sit and wait for sapeur-pompier, the fire rescue team, to come and quench the fire, or you will be rushing to the DO to take an authorization, or the neighbors will be rushing to the DO to take an authorization to come and quench the fire? No, they have to act. And there is nothing bad in the government coming and consolidating with this action that has been taken by our political party, headed by Professor Maurice Kamto. And if you look even at the beginning of this initiative, the Minat was being served. The Secretary General of Gendarmerie was being served. The Secretary General of the Police Force was being served. The National Order of Medical Doctors were being served. Other administrative authorities were being notified of this project. That's a little humility, and it shows so Republican. So there is no illegality about it, Mr. Babila. If actually our government, they took upon themselves, as they said they won the election, to govern the people the way they ought to govern, not to leave the Cameroonian people to die in their own laps. Then,
all right, last question before we go on something else. The report of the inquiry commission set up by the government on the Ngarbu incident in the northwest region of the country. The president of your political party is saying that there is need for an independent international investigation to reveal the whole truth. Why is it necessary for this commission to come from outside to come and investigate what has already been investigated by the government of the Republic?
Oh, it's very important what the president said, Professor Maurice Kamto, because there are a lot of things that have not been revealed. A lot of questions have not been answered, Mr. Babila. You and I even saw you, Mr. Babila, you were on the scene. Equinoxe TV was the only media that deployed one of its staff, and that was you. I saw on the ground to witness this thing live. Even when the Bishop of Boy, he gave these statistics. But this same government, me and you, they denied it, Mr. Babila. Something that we had about 22 to 23 cases down. We saw the mass barrier that took place, but the Minister of Communication came and told us about 5 cases. You know, Mr. Babila, our country has been deceiving us. We've lost confidence in this government. So we found more pleasure in working with the international community that has more authority over other countries to investigate. Remember, during the last presidential election, 2018, they brought us false surveillance. You know, these people, the government have always been taking Cameroonians to the bush. They have always been hiding the truth from Cameroonians. Even the statistics of this COVID is not being told. The truth is not being told as to how many Cameroonians are infected, how many are dead, how many, Mr. Babila. So we feel more comfortable submitting this in the hands of the international community to still investigate, because it is due to their pressure the Human Rights Watch and the other organizations, Brigade, even our party, the Human Rights Officer, Barrister Agbogbalankongo, they fought for this, for the truth to be spoken. And the truth has surely come out. Like pregnancy never hides, Mr. Jonathan. This is the time. And we believe there are more truths to be told. They need to tell us how many houses were burnt. How many people were burnt in total number? Because they haven't told us the truth. Their last communique told us it was 5, which is not 5. You and I, we know. Cameroonians, they know.
And
the surviving family.
In the findings published by the Inquiry Commission, the figure shifted from 5 to 13, which is still far below the figure presented by the church, by non-governmental organizations, national and international civil society organizations. Awasum Mispa, president of the women's wing of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM political party, and Northwest regional head of the party. Thanks for joining us in this edition of Talking Point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babila.
Coming up, as I told you earlier, we are paying tribute to Alfred Fogwe Beng, General Manager of the National Shipyard and Industrial Engineering Company, Chantier Naval. He was the CPDM Noni Section President in the Northwest region of the country. He died over the weekend of COVID-19.
I want to tell you that, Jonathan, the CPDM party is the only party that is deployed throughout the 365 council areas of this country. And this comes to tell you that it is a party which has the interests of the grassroots populations of this country at heart. We are not a party that is only looking for city dwellers. We are thinking about the hardships that Cameroonians are facing at the grassroots. And what concerns the Northwest province, the Northwest region, you remember that we are living the most difficult moments of our history in the Northwest at this time. But these campaign teams braved all the odds, and thanks to security measures that were put in place by the government forces to ensure that all campaign teams, be they CPDM or even teams of the opposition parties, were accompanied when they requested to be able to take their message down to the grassroots.
I'm a little more concerned with some of the remote and very difficult areas which you mentioned earlier. For example, Oku, the village of the former Prime Minister Philemon Yang. Did the campaign teams get to Oku? And
of course.
How was it? There was no opposition. There was the way was free, or there was a kind of pressure brought to bear on those who could have brought opposition by the presence, the heavy presence of security and defense forces.
Well, Jonathan, you do well to ask, because that is my constituency. I come from that constituency as well. And I can assure you that it was not all that very easy, but the population braved all the odds because they were reassured of the security measures that had been put in place. And when they finally came out, it was, I don't know if you need to see the pictures. The population was out, the crowds were dancing to have that little freedom after almost 3 years of tension, of fear, of hiding. But today, we are proud to say that things are coming back gradually to normal.
Some of them certainly came out of the bushes.
Definitely.
For the first time.
Definitely.
After a long period of time.
In fact, we want to applaud the spirit of the young, dynamic Cameroonians who, at the beginning of this crisis, though were misled, but later on found the path to come back. We saw example of this in Du, when Ngala Gerard descended on Du. We saw 6 young men who abandoned their guns and came back and apologized to the population, and they were embraced, they were welcomed, to say that even those who are still in the bushes at this time, they have nothing to fear. They need just to accept the olive branch that is stretched out to them, to come out of the bushes and to meet their fellow Cameroonians, so that at this moment, which is a defining moment in our country, where we are laying the foundation for a new Cameroon, that they should also be part of what is happening.
When the people saw the CPDM campaign team, the CPDM candidates, legislative and municipal, coming to them at this point in time, after over 3 years of atrocities, 3 years of killings, burning down of entire villages, what was their reaction? Were they receptive?
Yes, Jonathan, you must realize that all those atrocities are getting behind us now, and we are saying that this is not the time to judge people. This is not the time for the blame game, because we know the atrocities have been across the board. You have had people suffering from the atrocious acts of the fighters, the secessionist fighters who are in the bushes. You have also had cases where the military were forced to react with brutal force when it was necessary in 1961. It's in the same way today that we of the Northwest region must vote massively to make sure that the special status becomes a reality. This can only work, Jonathan, if these councillors are voted and they get into office, in order to also vote the regional councillors who will put now into place our regional assembly. Failing which, we will not obtain what we have been looking for, which has been local governance, and the opportunity has been given us through this. And we're insisting that the best partner of the population to lead us into this new
Cameroon, announced by the
Cameroon is the CPDM party and no one else. That's why we are calling on all the masses of the Northwest region, whether they are CPDM militants or not, for the good of our region. We're asking that they should vote the CPDM lists at these council elections.
But many are not very convinced with this message of spatial status, decentralization, and all of that. The message that you carry to the people. Many Anglophones seem to be very skeptical, and they are just thinking that this whole thing is not going to change anything. This whole thing is going to be another phase of what was qualified in President Paul Biya's speech during the recent Paris Peace Forum as an attempt of assimilation, that this is going to be another phase. How did you manage to convince the people?
Well,
were they sure about what you were saying? Were they convinced that
Jonathan,
what you're saying now is going to work?
You saw the images, you saw the populations that came out in the Southwest region. You saw the people that came out in Mutengene, those who came out in Limbe, those who came out in Boya to receive the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Dion Gute, who came with the same message. Came with the same message to the populations of the Southwest region to call on them to vote right. That means to give our future a chance. And if the population of the Southwest region did not believe or did not buy the message which was brought by the Prime Minister, you would not have seen the crowds that you saw. Similarly, when you watch the campaigns on the ground in the Northwest region, if you see the crowds that came out in Ndu, which has been a stronghold of the fighters. If you saw the crowds that came out in Kambe, the crowds that came out in Tabiken, the crowds that came out in Misaje, the crowds that came out in Elak Oku, just to name these ones. Even the crowds that came out in Santa. Jonathan, what else do you want? This is a plebiscite of the message we took out, because it shows that the population, despite the security risks, were willing to take a chance to come out to receive the message and to declare that yes, they are ready for the change at this time.
The declaration is what I'm more concerned about, because coming out to listen is one thing, and then what they are saying, what they were saying to the campaigners of the CPDM, to the candidates, to the officials of the party is another thing. What were they saying when they heard you people talking about all these spatial status, decentralization, return to peace and normalcy, development and so on? What were they saying?
Jonathan, you know that not everybody can sing the same song. But what I'm telling you is that by a wide majority, those who came out bought the message. You saw them dancing. You didn't need to do a vox pop to ask every single person of those 3,000 militants that came out in Tabiken. Did you expect to do a vox pop and speak to 3,000 people?
Everybody cannot speak, of course.
The message, the response to me was in the joy, in the dancing, in the singing. That spoke for itself. Even though it's true.
Some sort of a sign of hope.
It's true that there must be some dissenting voices here and there, but that is to be expected in a human society. But by and large, we are talking here about democracy, and democracy is a game of numbers. By the numbers I saw, I'm convinced that the message passed, and I am sure that on Sunday, what was said through dance and song will be concretized through the ballot box. And for this reason, I want to take this opportunity again to call on all the populations of the Northwest region. On Sunday, 9th February, when they go out there, this is the ballot paper that will decide the future of the Northwest region in the new Cameroon. Vote the CPDM. Means you are voting for peace.
Alfred Fogwe Beng, Director General of the National Shipyard and Industrial Engineering Company before his death, and of course Noni CPDM Section President in the Northwest region of Cameroon, was my guest on the 7th of February 2020, proud to the 9th of February municipal and legislative elections in the Republic of Cameroon. Today he's no more. He's one of the 56 dead victims of the COVID-19 in Cameroon. He died over the weekend. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Goodbye.